Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur TV show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is the first dose of your daily vitamin. So, as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. You can follow me on Instagram at Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur. You can also follow the Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur fan page, and please follow me on Twitter at DGoddess27. Okay, shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen, all right? So let's get into it. Now, they say an accountability group has found racial bail disparities in Minnesota. Clearly, we're not surprised. They say black defendants charged with felonies are frequently ordered to pay double the amount of bail as the whites accused of the same crime. And they call this the criminal justice system. It's actually the criminal injustice system. Now, the Law Enforcement Accountability Network of Duluth has found that black defendants in Minnesota charged with felonies are frequently ordered to pay double the amount of bail as their white defendants accused of the same crimes. And now, in numerous other reports that I've done, they've also said, and specifically in Florida, they've also said that black people are sentenced to a higher rate or a higher sentence or whatever than white people who have also committed the same crimes. For example, there was a young black man who was accused of burglary, and then there was a young white man who was accused of the same type of crime, right? Burglary. And he got probation while the black man got 3 years in prison. So this is how they do. So we surely shouldn't be surprised. So according to the Minneapolis Star-Tribune, Lean Duluth, an organization formed in the aftermath of the May 2020 police murder of George Floyd, analyzed data from the state court administrator's office between 2018 till 2021. Now, they found that during this time, bail was set for black defendants on average at $66,186 for felony charges, whilst the white defendants were given an average bail of $32,074. So they say Lean Duluth researched other phenomena in local justice seeking, including the disproportionate use of force incidents and arrests by Duluth police, and longer sentences for drug crimes for African Americans who make up 2% of the city's population. Now, the Star-Tribune notes that the state court administrator's office has disputed the data. Well, of course they have. Kyle Christopherson, who is a spokesperson for the office, said data of this nature requires a much more detailed analysis before any sweeping conclusions are drawn. Let me say this. I don't think you even need any data. I don't really think you need any data. Now, what you can do, as far as I'm concerned, is you can gather the research just to be specific, right, to gauge a more approximate amount that they're being charged disproportionately. But you can just look at the things that we see being reported, right? You can just see the things that we read about and just know from common sense without even gathering the data. You can just look and see that, as we know, throughout the divided snakes, not just in Minnesota, but you can clearly see that black people are treated disproportionately unfair as it goes to anyone else, especially whites and Asians. Black people are more likely to be harassed and racially profiled by police. White people are absolutely given more jail time for crimes. And then you get people like Brock Turner, who raped a young black woman behind a dumpster while she was unconscious. And he did 6 months, right, in jail. And they didn't want to ruin his career. And then you have Brooke Schuyler Richardson, who murdered her baby, stabbed it to death, set it on fire, buried it in her backyard. And she didn't get any prison time for the murder. What she got was 6 months for the desecration of the corpse. But that's just it. And so when black people are sentenced, they're usually given the maximum. And then, white people get a slap on the wrist. So I don't think that you need data, just a little bit of common sense. It's good to gather the data so that you have actual receipts. But I'm just saying, we all know how it goes down, all right, in the USA. So they go on to say that for many, high bail costs can worsen their situations, causing them to remain incarcerated until trial, making the system itself punitive for those who have not had their day in court. This is what they do it for. They want Black people to sit and languish in jail. They don't want you to be able to get out and go home until you have to go to court. This is the whole point. Okay, now Christopherson said that the state is evaluating its pretrial screening tool, adding that Minnesota is committed to equal justice and is making every effort to continue to address any factors that lead to disparate impacts on communities of color. Please listen with all of that. This is what they love to say. Please do not try to mayo-splain and talk to us as if we're stupid, because that's what they love to do. They're not trying to settle anything and make it equally. They're not trying to stop any type of disparities against Black people. In fact, every day, in my opinion, they're looking to find more that they can do, more nefarious, wicked, racist things that they can do to Black people. Facts. Now, while law enforcement authorities disputed the data, saying judges set bail amounts based on a variety of factors, I'll tell you what the main variety of factor is: your Blackness. That's my opinion. Now, T. Anna C. Wilson, an associate professor of constitutional criminal law at Mitchell Hamlin School of Law, told the Star Tribune that conscious and unconscious bias is one of those factors, adding that Black people are often perceived as criminal, more violent, and more likely to offend. First of all, that's all lies and all cap, because at the end of the day, we all know who the main criminals are. We all know who's the most violent, and we already know this, all right, because they have a history of it. And we already know who are most likely to offend. Now, they need to quit painting that narrative. See, this is not what they think. It's the image, the narrative, the agenda that they simply want to push. They don't really think Black people are the biggest criminals. They don't really think that Black people are the most violent. How could they, with all the heinous things they've done and have a history of doing? I'm just saying, they couldn't possibly believe that foolishness, but that's what they want to put out publicly to further demonize Black people. That's all it is, honey. I don't care what the devils say. Okay, the devils are a lie, please. So now here's the thing. Now listen to this. We have yet another instance of banking while Black. Where'd you get these checks? That's what they asked a Black KC artist and was interrogated, in fact, over her bank deposit slip. Over her bank deposit. Now they say they stopped her and went to asking her all these questions because I guess they didn't believe her checks were legit. If you still don't understand why businesses need diversity training, meet Harold Smith, a nationally known Black Kansas City artist who was humiliated on Tuesday at the Security Bank of Kansas City, where he's been a customer for about 40 years. 40 years now. So he says he drove up to the bank's drive-through window to simply deposit several checks. But instead of a courteous, "How are you today? How can we help you?" The question the teller had for him was, where did you get those checks? Really? Now, this was not even the first time this has happened to him at this bank. Well, if that's the case, then he's the fool for being there for 40 years, because I'd have left as soon as they tried it, okay? 7 months earlier, Smith attempted to deposit 3 checks, including one that had been signed over to him and another that was for a large amount from a major television studio. The teller at Security Bank's Central Avenue branch told Smith he could not deposit the first check unless the person who had signed it over was present. Then she asked where he got the TV check. The name of the studio was clearly printed on the check. Let me tell y'all something. I had an incident like this one time. This was years ago. I remember going into a bank, and I didn't have an account there, but it was a check from my mortgage company, right, for some repairs that I had to have done. And so, nevertheless, it was for a few $1,000s. And so, with that all being said, when I went in there, I believe it was SunTrust, right? So I went in there, and they were acting all shady and stank and said, "Oh, you can't cash it here. You're going to have to go to the branch downtown. You're going to have to do this, you're going to have to do that." Now, the only reason I went to them in the first place, as opposed to going to my own bank, was because they were closer. They were literally like, right by my job. But at the end of the day, I'm like, "Honey, are you serious right now? Let me speak to the manager," okay? Because I feel racially profiled at this point. So anyway, they went on to cash my check, but I did file a complaint. And my whole thing is this happens to numerous Black people. I don't know why they think that Black people are so broke. We do have broke Black people, but we also have broke white people, honey. And do they ask them and put them through all of this when some of them coming in there look like whole rednecks and hillbillies? I don't think they do. But let me continue. So anyway, initially, Smith refused to let himself believe that he was being racially profiled at his own longtime bank and wrote it off as just a situation with a teller in dire need of some customer service training. He thought if he spoke to a manager, they would fix this and maybe set that teller straight about how to treat their customers. Lord, I absolutely cannot. Do y'all hear this? See, this is the problem I have with Negroes fresh off the plantation. He said that he didn't think and didn't want to believe it was racially profiling that was being done at his longtime bank. Y'all hear this? This is also, honey, I cannot with these kind of Black people. I can't believe it happened to me and all that type stuff. Honey, you're Black. It can absolutely happen to you. And here's the thing. Fools like him want to give these racist devils the benefit of the doubt, talking about they hadn't been properly trained. Oh, they've been clearly trained, honey, in racism 101. Now, instead, Smith says he was told that, yes, sometimes based on a feeling, a teller will ask about the origin of a check. Yeah, that feeling is called racism. A feeling maybe that someone who looks like you should not be depositing that much money. Absolutely. This uncomfortable feeling policy asks employees to indulge their implicit biases, which we all have and may not even be aware of. Implicit bias training helps us understand how stereotypes can affect our perceptions and behavior, but training alone would not prevent the problem, Smith says. Now, or the problem that he had, because the policy of encouraging employees to go with their impressions runs exactly counter to that. So they're really telling them to go by their gut instincts, which I think is so stupid. And let me tell you something. I don't like the fact that they're trying to paint the narrative that everyone exhibits some form of implicit bias. I don't have implicit bias. You see, I don't look at someone, due to how they are dressed or the skin tone and start making nefarious assumptions. I don't do that. I sit there and wait and see what they say and how they behave. Now, if you looking crazy and saying something crazy and clearly saying something racist, I'm going to say that you're a racist, right? I don't just look at white folks and say, oh, yeah, they're racist. No, I don't do that because I have sense enough to know that not all of them are implicitly and blatantly racist, right? Some of them are closeted racists, but at the end of the day, I don't feel that every last one of them are racist. So I don't just make these judgments just from looking at you, but I can tell as soon as you open your mouth. Okay, that's what I can do. So I don't feel that I have any implicit biases, and I really wish they would stop trying to paint this narrative, because what they're doing when they say this is trying to say, Black people, don't get mad because y'all have implicit biases too. No, we don't. And even if we do, what we don't do is go around stopping white folk or Asians and, asking them, why are you here? Did you get lost? Can you show your ID? Do you know anyone in this building? Well, I've never seen you. Why are you in my neighborhood? You're harassing everyone. We don't do stuff like that. Nor do we make these bogus 911 calls and lie on them and say they're assaulting us like the woman in the park, Amy, Central Park, Karen, right? We don't do that. So please, please, please stop trying to paint the narrative, and put it out there as if we're all the same and this is something that everyone does, because it's not. It is absolutely not. So anyway, it goes on to say a policy like that virtually guarantees that banking while Black will be a problem. Now, of course, we call the bank, they say, for an explanation. Vice President Dave Mulvaney said the teller was actually trying to protect Smith. Or from what? Them? No. Trying to protect him from fraud. Here's the thing. How is the teller trying to protect him from fraud when he came in there with his checks that he got and was trying to deposit him? I'm sorry. Say what now? Because that makes no sense. You see how the mail-splaining continues? Anyway, they say, as you may be aware, check fraud is very common right now. It's very common. And our frontline staff is the first line of defense to protect both our customers and the bank. This is what Mulvaney said in a letter to Smith after he told the bank in an email he plans to make what happened public. He says we have the tough job to balance excellent customer service and risk mitigation for fraud. Well, that's understandable if you're trying to risk mitigation for fraud, but please don't sit there and try to act as though the teller was trying to protect him by giving him the third degree. All right. And then telling him that the person who signed the check or wrote the check needs to come and sign it and all of that foolishness. Also, please don't sit here and act as though this is just something that's common that they do to every customer, because it isn't. Now, they say if that's true, why did no one explain that to Smith the first time or the second? There needs to be a better policy, or as Smith suggested, a script to use. Sir, we want to make sure our customers are safe from fraud, so we need to ask a few questions to protect you. Please. That's what I don't even think that's going to, make any sense. Because here's the thing. If you're asking questions, and those questions pertain to things about myself, how is that protecting me from fraud unless I'm trying to defraud myself? At the end of the day, even if you're asking questions about the check and where I got it from, where'd you get those checks? How, again, is that protecting me from fraud? I'm just so curious. Because here's the thing. If I have a check that someone gave me and I obviously know who gave it to me, then I'm pretty sure that I would know, whether or not I could trust this person. And so that's just all a load of BS. They just automatically assume that the checks are counterfeit, that they were fraudulently obtained, and things like that. That's what they do. Now, leaving it up to the teller to pick and choose when and whom to ask such questions about personal and private things encourages employees to indulge their own biases. And it guarantees that what happened to Smith will absolutely happen again. But it won't involve Smith because the longtime security customer pulled out his money and took his business elsewhere. Well, I'm glad he finally did. Sitting there talking about he didn't know they were profiling him or he didn't want to believe it. I'm absolutely glad he did, honey. Okay? So, how many times do we have to hear these stories? I mean, the fact that he at first said he didn't want to believe, that's the problem with Black people. A lot of times we see the truth, we know the truth, but we simply don't want to believe it. Okay? That's what many of our people do. So anyway, the family of a young Black man who was killed by Houston police, they've now filed a federal lawsuit against them. Now, you may remember that I reported on this story when it first happened. And it was about Charion Lockett, okay? His mother, who says that he was killed in Houston by police in early February, announced Thursday that her and her family have filed a federal civil rights lawsuit against the city of Houston, as well as the 4 officers who shot him. In the lawsuit, attorneys for Lockett's mother, Shawnita Lewis, accused police of never even announcing themselves before they started shooting. They claim that it is made obvious in the body cam video that police released last month. Because remember how the police lie. I mean, we all know, right? So I'm going to share my screen so you all can see this report. Likes up, everyone. Please get the likes up. Shout out to everyone tuned into the Queen.
Shot and killed by Houston police plan to file a federal lawsuit against the officers involved, as well as the city of Houston. Charion Lockett was in his car in his driveway when that deadly shooting happened last month. And ABC 13's Brittany Wilmer is live in our newsroom now, looking ahead to this one. Hi, Brittany.
Hi, Rita. Good morning. Charion Lockett's family and attorneys will talk about that lawsuit later this morning at 11. And in it, they accuse police of never announcing themselves before they start shooting. They say that's clear in body cam video that was released by Houston police. They also say that the city of Houston has not been transparent and that HPD refuses to release records. On the morning of Monday, February 7th, Lockett was killed in his mother's front yard. Officers said they tried to arrest him on an aggravated robbery warrant and that Lockett shot at them first. But Lockett's family said the police showed up in unmarked vehicles, didn't identify themselves, or give him the chance to turn himself in. His family also said that in this body cam video released online by HPD last month, you never see Lockett shooting first. The family also questions the warrant, saying Lockett was framed.
Nobody presented him with a warrant. And to drive by and shoot him and don't say anything and shoot him down like an animal in his front yard.
Well, I went through the complaint filed on behalf of Lockett's mother, and those being sued include HPD Chief Troy Finner, the 4 HPD officers who shot and killed Lockett, and the city of Houston. Now, Lockett had no criminal record and held bachelor's and master's degrees in criminal justice. His family says he was also practicing to take the LSAT. Again, later this morning, we'll hear more about this federal lawsuit, and we'll bring you that update. Live in the newsroom, I'm Brittany Wilmore.
And that's just a darn shame. I mean, the police do this all the time to Black people. They just roll up in plain clothes, unmarked vehicles, and jump out with guns. I mean, if you ask me, this is all by design. This is all by design. If you run up on somebody with your regular clothes on and you're in a regular car, how are they supposed to know you're the police? And if you pull a gun on them, don't you think if they have one, they're going to pull one back and start shooting in the efforts to defend themselves? They fear for their lives. I don't understand why the police get to use that excuse all the time and time again. We fear for our lives. So Black people don't fear for theirs. And then they love to say, well, the police had to make a split-second decision. And Black people don't. Especially when you see someone coming at you with a gun, surrounding you in regular cars, and you don't know who the hell they are. You don't know they're the police. What are you supposed to do? Stand there and just wait to get killed, or try to save your own life? I'm sorry, that makes absolutely no sense. And they know it makes no sense. But they do these things and they'll continue to do it as long as they're able to get away with it, which usually they are. Okay? I mean, I think it's just asinine that you just come up to somebody and, don't even just walk up to the car like you've got some sense, because that's what they could have done. Why couldn't they just walk up to the car? That's all. Why couldn't they have waited for him to exit the vehicle, said, sir, excuse me, but I'm with so-and-so's police department, and show their badge and say, we're going to need to take you in. You're under arrest for such and such. No, they don't do all that, because I believe they don't want to take you to jail in the first place. I believe they want to take you to the morgue so they can get your organs and your melanin. All right? Please. I just am so sick of hearing these stories. But at the end of the day, until there's some type of legislation passed for the police to be held absolutely accountable whenever they're killing unarmed Black people, whenever they're just jumping out in regular clothes and unmarked vehicles and start shooting at Black people, and anyone else for that matter. But I'm specifically talking about Black people, since it disproportionately happens to Black people. Unless there is some type of legislation to make them accountable, they'll continue to do this. So, honey, these to me are state-sanctioned executions. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I cannot with these racist devils. They know exactly what they're doing, honey. It's no mistake. Trust me when I say. So anyway, everyone, please like and share this video. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click the notification bell and click the word all so that you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. And I hope to see you all later on today for the rest of your daily vitamins. Peace.
In order for you and me to devise some kind of method or strategy to offset some of the events or a repetition of the events that have taken place here in Los Angeles recently, we have to go to the root. We have to go to the cause. Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another Black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is Black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put 2 dupes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a Black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me, cause I ain't going no damn.